Good morning, everybody. I'm just kind of going back and seeing groups that I feel like, I'm going to pull out and just be like, these guys are really something special, from whatever period, from the 20s up till today. So the next month of videos are probably going to be, a bunch of that stuff, some newer stuff. And then, after that, I'm going to keep putting out some of my own stuff just for, just to have it up there. I'm not trying to promote it. I don't really care, if it gets whatever number of views, 2 views or 20 views or 200 views. But, just put it out there. If people get some kind of enjoyment out of it, then that's nice. And then, I'll be doing some longer form documentaries, different genres. I got a whole bunch set up, a dozen sort of deep dives, research into some of these groups. So it'll basically be me narrating it, but you won't see me here. It'll be a lot of visual, a lot of pictures, and stuff like that. And I just basically research some of the music. I will be playing some of the music. Just some, what I'm going to try to do is just, make some cool little documentaries of stuff that basically we've been doing here, but put it a little bit more into the research and pictures and music and multimedia sort of thing. And just get that out there on YouTube and try to create some interest for, some of these groups and some of these people, some of this music. That's all this all is about. It's about sharing back and forth. You guys have still continued to give me some great recommendations. So eventually I will get another video out there just doing a sort of compilation medley of some of my favorite recommendations that you guys have given me. I'm keeping track of them all, and I've already listened to most of them. So just kind of putting them into different ratings as far as, where it sits for me. And then I'll put them together and put out some more videos for that for you guys. But it's it's the holiday season. I left the window open because it got our first snow day today. This is a Sunday. If you haven't, I don't know when this is going to be coming out, next week probably, but previous Sunday we got our first snow, so I thought I'd leave the window open and get that sort of white out look. Let us continue. Let's start with this first one. I thought I haven't listened to these guys in so long. I saw them just randomly. I didn't know who they were, but I went and saw a show in Santa Cruz, California, visiting a friend. And Broun Fellinis, Broun, Fellinis, related to the director, the French director, or Italian director. Italian, I think. Yeah, sorry. I think French and Italian movie cinema, kind of similar. Anyway, Broun Fellinis. And their first album came out in 1995. I think I saw them right after this, around that time. And their first album is called Aphrokubist, with a K, Improvisations, Volume 9. And anyway, basically a trio. So you've got David Boyce, who went by Black Edgar Kenyatta. You've got on saxophone, tenor and alto and soprano. And then you've got Kevin Carnes on drums and percussion, called AKA Professor Boris Karnaz. Again, this is the 90s, so this is not new. And then you got the bass player was Ayman, A-Y-M-N, Mobarek. And he went by Ayman Rasta Bibish. Anyway, so basically bass, drums, and sax. Kind of acid jazz. I don't know. That's what they would probably put them in a category. But, I use that term loosely. I don't know. I didn't use it too much. The music I listened to, some of the music I listened to then, it was just some mixture of sort of newish neo-jazz, funk, and then, other other styles kind of thrown in there. So, anyway, I will say trio. And the time that I saw them, yes, I was definitely went with a couple other musicians, and we had also taken something that made us feel a little extra special about listening to a type of music. And ultimately, I was, I'll say live. The studio is obviously going to be studio. It's a different beast than what they were live. We're all kind of sitting Indian style on the floor, and just for an hour of them playing, I was just open mouth, just kind of like I was seeing something. I didn't just doing the best I could to just take it in, and literally moment to moment. But anyway, fantastic. But here's the album. This is what they put out. Again, this is studio, so it's going to be a little bit more subdued. It's going to be a little bit more controlled. But, it does give the essence of what they were. So anyway, without further ado, I think I'll play just the first one off the album, just to get an idea of where they came into this recording world for everybody. I'm going to do, 2, maybe 3. I'd love to do like a full album listen, but I don't have the batteries right now because I want to do all these other, I want to do some other material too. So for right now, I'm going to do a couple snippets, and I think that's, good for now. So we're going to start off with the first track called Bathsheba Blue. And here we go. Up. I just wanted to say, so far, like it just really feels like they're just beginning. They're just opening up the can very slowly, and actually, so from what I've listened to prior to this, or what I've listened to in the past few months, going through that Canterbury scene, I did get a feeling of like the beginning, the sort of just a phrase being repeated. It made me think of like Keith Tippett and the horn sections that he had at the time, just kind of because there are a couple of their songs they would just run it over and it'll go over and sort of reintroduce it and introduce it. And I just had that, it just popped into my head when I first started listening to this again. I thought of like Keith Tippett. I was like, wow, that's like 20, 25 years departure. Not saying that there was influences, this and that. I just got that interesting little, just felt like kind of a deja vu there. Anyway, so obviously, with this, the little difference, you probably feel like there's definitely like you have definitely like a Middle Eastern feel to this. So it's a mixture of kind of funk jazz, also with all these, harmonic scale, Middle Eastern scales. And then seeing them live, the thing that, they all hold their weight. They're a great trio. They have great chemistry together. They have listening skills, obviously, like everything can kind of flow. And, but I'll say seeing them live, the drummer just blew me away. Like I just was like transfixed. That's the best word I can think of for seeing these guys, and the drummer transfixed. The drummer was, I remember, this is 30 years ago. I remember him just wearing basically a vest, That's it. And just kind of, his tongue was kind of hanging out the whole time. He was just like, he just felt like a spider, with 8 legs, just all of them just constantly, going. Anyway, yeah, I'd say that I was transfixed for probably an hour. I never took my eyes off the group and the sounds, but this is great. I think you can get idea of live how much, when these guys just let loose, open the can, like what it could become. So, and it's definitely reminiscent. I'm sure everyone's listened to jazz. We've listened to funk jazz. We've heard all these variations of jazz through the time. It's just gotten, in a sense, only word I can think of is bastardized. Maybe too strong a word, but not for some stuff. Some stuff definitely it's gotten run through the mill, in a lot of ways. But it's been a long time, so that happens to music. It gets twisted. It's like Play-Doh. Anyway, but I like what these guys are doing with it. It sounds fresh. They're taking it into this sort of avant-garde slash funk slash kind of world beat, and then just having fun with it, but improvising. So let's continue. I'm gonna go back a little bit. I think he's gonna do a solo. Sounds like soprano sax. Here we go. Okay. Track 1, Broun Fellinis. So it sounds like cool little solo, kind of went into this, they just expanded it into this sort of chaos, which makes sense, some space, and they just, in the studio, obviously he can throw in the soprano sax and throw in the tenor sax and just make this sort of, wonderful sort of chaotic mixture of instruments. And, especially in your first recording and big things, you want to have these sort of sonic, create these sonic textures and these sort of, you just want to experiment and just have fun with it and create these sort of, waves of stuff. Anyway, it looks like the core members met and began their collaboration in the Bay Area. Yeah, again, they were big in San Francisco. And drummer Kevin Carnes relocated to San Francisco in 1983 and was part of the industrial punk band The Beatniks. Saxophonist David Boyce arrived in San Francisco in 1989, and then Carnes and Boyce met on the day of the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989 and immediately connected. They united with the original bassist Eamon Moberek to form the Broun Fellinis in 1991, and when Moberek left in 1993, Kirk Peterson, Kirk the Redeemer, joined on bass. So, yeah, I just got some of this information recently, so yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming I saw on this particular album was in 95, so I'm assuming that was Kirk Peterson and not Eamon Moberek. Anyway, yeah, there's always something that I'm missing on these, so yeah, it's pretty funny. So yeah, this San Francisco trio, as it was stated somewhere, weaves Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, jazz, hip-hop, extraterrestrial elements together into a bold, cosmic, ethno-Lovecraftian tapestry. Jason Stazak wrote this, yeah. Crisp rhythm tracks are punctuated by sparse bass proddings, cooled by lingering acoustic keyboard textures, and shot through with heart-probing reed explorations. The sound is decidedly unelectric, very present and very close. Stanley Clarke was the bass player's first influence, and he said, I'll be truthful, again, I was also influenced by Primus. Confession time, Kenyatta explains. All right, I have nothing to hide. I loved Duran Duran, but if you look at the jazz bands that are being signed to big labels, you'll notice that there's nothing out there that sounds quite like us. And predictably, unusual jazz does not easily apply to big industry players. If we had a B3 organ and a guitar, someone might be breaking their necks trying to get our shit out, but we're not acid jazz, and we don't conform nicely to creative, this weird new category created by American jazz labels. Nonetheless, we're not going to stop what we're doing because someone at Verb or Columbia isn't calling us. That's not why we make music. Hence the Brown Sound label. So yeah, they did not fit into whatever at the time in the 90s, the sort of acid jazz scene. But they were respected at the time, I believe, because they were, from what I had gleaned at the time, they were sort of called the princes of San Francisco, at least in the sort of avant-garde jazz scene. And they were opening up for Charlie Hunter, so at least by other groups out there that were getting a little bit more traction, they were known about. But yeah, I think it's just, a cool trio making interesting sounds. One foot in a bunch of different styles. But yeah, so anyway, let's jump back into them again. So yeah, we'll do one or two more. Let's see, let's go a different direction. I remember there being one that kind of stood out for me. So there's a song called Chestnut Roasting, which maybe we should do because it is around that season, chestnuts roasting. So yeah, let's do that one. I think then we'll try to fit in one more and just get a kind of overall. Kind of a cute little 90s. Part of it is they're so unique because they're so tight. That's a 3-minute and 40-second song. They went through, an interesting kind of, cute, I'd call it a cute little head, go into a short solo, come back to the short little head, go into sort of an interlude with a sort of the band's kind of creating this sort of, walking up steps with the scale, and come back with another solo and then leave with that. So it's very concise. It's and honestly, I can listen to just the drums and bass just playing together, is really fun, enjoyable, just to hear their sort of their chemistry together. So yeah, we'll do one more after this. So some of the other stuff they've talked about, the prevailing attitude that if you don't put something out every 2 weeks, you'll fade into obscurity. But we didn't produce the second album because we felt the pressure. We did it because we felt the desire. I've seen this guy under pressure for a deadline, and we can't let what's not happening stop us, but we can make other things happen. There are ways to be independent. You just have to drum up the cash. Plus, with our own label, we own everything, and we don't have to compromise. One of the things they talked about was a few years back in the early 90s, late 80s, when the Acid Genes stumbled upon San Francisco like a pair of oversized platforms. It seemed that hipsters and AR predators might be able to pinpoint the enigmatic Fellinis. It was cool to be part of that scene for the business aspect. A genre helps you sell. But if you're just in it to win it, that's about as long as people are going to listen to you, because it's going to be thin, and thin is always in. If you're going to sit down on a drum set, it's not all about the bell bottoms. I don't care how cool your bell bottoms are. Some people come to hear us and expect us three, not to diss, but that's just different stuff. We didn't fit into that category. That's why we're still around. We go to clubs and listen to these acid jazz sets, and I think, yeah, the addition of jazz could be acidic if they allowed someone to come into the scene and take them out. The solos that these people played were old ideas straight out of the book, like repetitive licks that don't go anywhere. After a while, it became an insult to the word acid and all of its connotations. You want your head opened up when you take acid. Jazz, to me, is already like that. So, yeah, I can kind of see what he's saying. It's like it devolves, It's really a de-evolution, this acid jazz. It de-evolutionized. For a while, people created some new ideas, but eventually they were just rehashing old ideas and putting it into this new cookie cutter format, new instrumentation, this style, and it wasn't actually creating any new, wasn't opening up any new ideas. But I truly, when I saw these guys, and ultimately it's just, a lot of it's just good musicianship, just seeing the drummer play, seeing the bass player, seeing the sax player just emote in real time, felt wonderful. Felt like they were creating in real time. That doesn't mean that the the jazz, the other style, the other skills of arranging music and having, you can do it it doesn't have to be improvisations. It can be an arrangement and creating these new textures and new ideas. So I feel like they were sort of had foots in both of those, trying to create new actual music and also trying to live off that in the present time and be creative in the present time and improvise and see where that took them. But I'll admit, seeing them live, I felt it was on 10. It was probably like in the day back before I could see anybody, seeing Coltrane live, and for, it could be the whole time or just for a minute or 2 minutes, you just feel this wave of just like real intense creativity and passion and stuff like that. But I definitely felt that with these guys seeing them live. Studio version, like I said, feels a little bit more subdued. It feels a little bit more controlled, but you do get the essence of the potential and what it could be like to see that live. So yeah, let's just do one more, and then I will. I just feel like these guys, it's a different scene. If you weren't in, I'm sure, like if you were in San Francisco at the time, you probably might have come across these guys or heard about them. But being anywhere else, no, you'd be completely kind of separated. I don't know how much they actually made out of toured outside of California, perhaps. I'm not sure. I've gotten a little bit just information off these guys, just from either researching, but even AI came in a little bit handy. Trying to pinpoint when I might have saw them or what the scene was at the time, how much they were touring. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's something I like the style. So I'm going to do one more. And I think this was one, and this one's called Herodutus on the Nile.
Demonade and Aphrodite.
A lot of wind. A lot of wind in that one. I don't know if you're afraid of it. I'm sure you had to sit down after that. Yeah, so that was probably the most straight up 5 minutes, nonstop, everything, nonstop blowing, nonstop drumming, nonstop bass. Yeah, everything kind of pushing. Again, that one was called Herodutus on the Nile. They definitely do a lot more. So I played more of the instrumental stuff. They have some vocal stuff on this album as well. Kind of spoken word, Gil Scott-Heron. Like I said, I didn't go into necessarily the whole idea of this group. They created a lot of this sort of backstory to the group and created this sort of mixture of like abstract art and fantasy and the idea of this other world that they sort of created around these identities and the music and stuff. So there's a lot of other stuff around the story. So this isn't necessarily completely representative of the whole album. They have a lot of stuff that's a little bit more on the sort of spoken word, beatnik jazz stuff like that. So there is some of that on this album as well. But yeah, ultimately those are some of my favorite instrumental. I took more of them in the sort of musicianship side of seeing them and just being inspired, by them. But anyway, I'll go into a tiny bit more, just some of the stuff they've talked about. The sax player bring up some interesting just ideas about the scene, which is interesting in the real time. This is 30 years later, so I'm not sure what they're doing now. But as he said, abstraction, he said, is healthy. In our society, it's needed. Our times are too literal. You need to flip your script and get cubist, get surreal, be a fool, walk to the store in blue paint, talk loudly to yourself on the street, get abstract. If we're playing music, it's hard to tell how political we are. We might stand for total anarchy. We might stand for tightness and cohesion. Listening to Kenyatta's poetry against the live bass and drum is something of a cranium-opening experience, sounding more like spoken word than just spoken word. Spoken mind than just spoken word. Kenyatta relates his visions of identity and race in a deeply personal style reminiscent of the last poets and Gil Scott-Heron, as I sort of mentioned briefly earlier. So yeah, there's definitely some of that. Like I said, I'd have to listen to it again. I'm not sure how much I'd gravitate towards it now versus then. I don't remember how much I gravitate toward. I put their musicianship and their playing probably was the thing that sort of grabbed me at first. And and lastly, I would just say, when I did see these guys and they opened up for Charlie Hunter, who I had heard of, and like I said, I didn't go to see any of these guys specifically. I probably heard of Charlie Hunter and probably, I assumed, maybe knew and liked his music to some degree. I don't remember buying his albums, but I certainly listened to, I think, a couple of his albums at the time, just to see what they're about. But honestly, after I saw these guys open up, I left, and I didn't want to see Charlie Hunter specifically because these guys were so much in my head, and I just didn't want to gloss over that. I didn't want it to leave my head after seeing Charlie Hunter. I felt like it would have maybe clouded my remembrance of that experience. So I decided to leave. And then I think after the two guys that I went with came back afterwards, they said that I made the right decision, that he wasn't as good as the Broun Fellinis. So yeah, I didn't see it being possible at the time. I said, there's no way anything after these guys is going to beat this. So I'm out. Anyway, yeah. So obviously I had a special experience, and if anybody out there, had ever seen these guys and had that or have opinions about it, I'd love to hear about it. But I just wanted to get these guys out there a little bit more. I love their stuff. It's a unique style. And again, so I appreciate you all coming through this with me. I'll put this out there, and again, I'm going to do a few more after this, exploring into some old time, some country blues, and a few surprises there. I'm going to do a certain some soft machine period later in the 70s, and then I'm going to go into a little bit of a little bit of, they had a compilation that Hugh Masekela put out called the Chisa Years, which was some of his groups that he was working with at the time in the mid 70s. So I'm going to do a little medley of that because I think it's just it stands up. It really holds up compared to almost every other. I like a lot of sort of Afrobeat and different styles from that period, and this stuff is just so alive. I just want to get that out there. Anyway, but I appreciate you coming. This is Subterranean Visions. I am Scott. I'm going to continue putting out some stuff here and there, less consistent on the reaction side of it. Putting some of my own stuff out there just almost kind of just like as filler, but if it's certainly stuff that I'm proud of to some degree. So by all means, listen to it if you feel the need to. But yeah, just trying to keep the channel moving along, trudging along, dragging one leg behind me. So I'm trying to do some of this music stuff, keep this out there at least once a month, get some new stuff out there, whether it's listening to you guys, giving me some recommendations, or just putting out some stuff that I've really just want to get out there into the YouTube arena, whatever the hell that is, But yeah, this stuff doesn't make it as far as it used to. I had a video I did, just me like playing guitar for like 2 minutes, this guitar that I made, and over time it really built up. It was nothing special. I didn't even pay attention to it, but over time, it was like 10 years ago. Now it's 1,000 views. But I feel like now the way YouTube does it, they have this so much micro testing in the first 48, 72 hours that if it doesn't have an incline rise in the first, it just sort of gets a very much reduced output, views, lesser seen. It gets put into these shadows, let's say. Which is, I don't know, I guess just because of the quantity, they can't put everything into the same, I don't know how they do it. I have no idea. But it just feels like it's in a different behavior model now, as far as how stuff is allowed to sort of just be found. Anyway, curious anyway. But I appreciate it. I'm going to keep up doing something. It's either going to be reactions, going to be these stuff, recommendations. As I said, I'm going to do I have a lot of documentary style that I have like pretty much all ready to go. I just have to record my narration, and then I can start doing all the videos. And I have like probably 13 of those that are going to be pretty like long form. But I've done a few documentaries on other stuff, and I feel like I really want to go in this direction to some degree, just see how good I can do it, and just make it enjoyably watchable, research, education, visually entertaining, all that stuff, audio. So it's a fun project to jump into right now, from where I'm at, and just developing some of these abilities for the first time, being able to do video stuff, so it's interesting to sort of jump into that. Anyway, till the next one, you guys, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. Love to hear from you. Believe me, anytime, any comment whatsoever, anything, any information you want to ask about me, you want to talk about the music, you want to talk about yourself, whatever, it's all good. Love to talk to you guys, because I have enough time. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not overwhelmed with so many people demanding things from me on this channel as of yet, which is fine. And and so it gives me time to talk to you guys. So appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.